Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. This week we're going to try out a card from Oath of the Gatewatch in a modern shell, and this one is Ayli, the Eternal Pilgrim, which I think this card fits best in a recursion type spell. Like, you want to be killing creatures with Ayli to gain your life total above 30, which is exactly what another deck wants to be doing, which is getting your life total above 30 for the Serra's Ascendant. So I think this fits perfectly in what we call a Martyr Proc shell. Now, why they call this Martyr Proc is you're trying to use two cards to really stabilize. This can be Martyr of Sands, which is a 1 mana for a 1/1 human cleric that you can reveal X white cards from your hand and you gain 3 times that life. Then we have the Proclamation of Rebirth, which you can forecast it for 6 mana to return a creature card with converted mana cost 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And so you just want to control the field until you have kind of this lock going. And any damage-based deck is going to have a very difficult time with the Martyr of Sands Proclamation of Rebirth combo. Now, the other card that wants to be above 30 or more life is going to be the Serra Ascendant, which has lifelink, and when you have 30 more life, it becomes a 6/6 flying lifelinker. You can do this first turn Serra's Ascendant, second turn Martyr, sack it, and then swing in for 6. That actually happens quite frequently. And then we run Ranger of Eos to tutor up either one of the combo that we need. So a traditional shell will have a lot of control. It has ways to really stall out the game. A lot of them run like 4 Pass, 4 Wrath of Gods. But to try to fit Ayli in this shell, we're going to run a Wall of Omens, which I think is the best card for the Ayli to sacrifice, as it will gain 4 life and draw you a card. I think that we want to Return to the Ranks 2 as a way to recur the Ayli, and then the rest of the shell is going to stay pretty much similar to Martyr Proc. So you use cards like Emeria that eventually can recur your Serra's Ascendant, or a Ranger, or this will be able to recur the Eternal Pilgrim. And then a Mistveil Plains is really cool in this deck because you can put any card back on the bottom of your library, and then through cards like Ranger, you can tutor them back up, or the Squadron Hawk can have like infinite Squadron Hawks because one dies, you then put it on the bottom of your library, then you cast one, search one up, then you sack one again, it goes to your graveyard, you put it on the bottom of your library, you tutor it up, etc., etc., etc. You just keep that. It's a very, very good stall strategy until that you can get kind of the lock. Now, why I like Ayli so much in this deck is I think she does everything that this deck wants with being able to exile target non-land permanent. So you're playing a control route, and this can actually be kind of your control finisher. Eventually, you get that lock, and you'll be able to destroy whatever it is, or exile whatever it is that your opponent is kind of trumping your win condition with. So we have the kind of mid-range and actually can be incredibly fast draws with the Serra's Ascendant, and we have the more grindy control draws with Ayli and Wrath of God and like Sun Titan, and then Ranger tutoring stuff up. I have a 1 of Sun Titan. It just recurs cards like Ghost Quarter very well, and also fetch lands to kind of get enough of the plains for Emeria the Sky Ruin. We have to have 7 or more plains, so all of our lands are either going to tutor up a plane, like Flagstones, we can actually Ghost Quarter Flagstones to go find a Godless Shrine, or they'll just count as plains. So Mistveil Plains is really cool with both Flagstones and any of the fetch lands because it does count as a plains. So you can go fetch it up with Windswept Heath. You can actually get it with the Flagstones. And how we kill the Flagstones is through Ghost Quarter, just having 2 Flagstones. Also thins out our deck. And then you can also tutor up with the Weathered Wayfarer. So we're just going to run 2 Path to Exiles in the main and 2 Wrath of Gods in the main. And we also have 2 more of each of those in the sideboard. So against specific decks like Kiki Cord, you'll want to bring those in. But I think that there is enough combo and decks that just do not revolve around creatures in Modern right now that Path might not be as main boardable as it used to be. So I think we explained the Orzhov Charm is really cool in this deck too because it can also destroy a creature. And losing life equal to its toughness, if you have to kill a Tarmogoyf for like 5 or 6, it's not that big of a deal when then you can just Martyr again to get your life total above where you need it to be. But usually use Orzhov Charm at an instant speed recursion to either bring back Martyr of Sands or Serra's Ascendant. So you can, for example, if you're over 30 life, the really cool trick is that they swing in. And you have say they've bolted off a Serra's Ascendant or killed it through a Terminate, then you Orzhov Charm it back, and then it can come into play and then block whatever they're swinging in with. So also returning a creature you control, and all R's of course is irrelevant in this deck, but you can bounce an Ayli or a Wall to kind of get more value out of drawing a card with Wall. Another reason why I have it in there, I think it's just very flexible. It's just a nice little cantrip card in Modern. I think it fits perfectly in this deck. And that's why also with Return of the Ranks, one of Return of the Ranks is something, we have some 2-drops that we can actually curse. So I think it gets the nod over a card like Immortal Servitude. So Wall, I think another slot for the Wall, you could run Lingering Souls, but I think this is where, which do you value more? Do you value 4 1/1 white spirit tokens? Or do you value a creature that is a 0/4 basically roadblock and then draws you a card? So I'm thinking with this deck, now with Ayli, I think that the Wall definitely gets the nod. So we'll go on to the sideboard now. Disenchant is just a very flexible card. There are plenty of artifacts and enchantments that you do need to get rid of. Ghostly Prison's annoying. There's one. We have a lot of more flex with the Eternal Pilgrim, but Disenchant will be an early flex card to destroy any of those artifacts or enchantments. It's good against like Bogles and Affinity. I think you can safely bring them in. Speaking of Affinity, we have Stony Silences that will work very well against both Tron and Affinity. And I have a Kami of False Hope, which is good against anything that does combat damage. So I'm thinking Infect, Bogles, Gristle Shoal. I think Kami will do very well against those type of decks. And Infect will be sort of a weak matchup because they don't care about our life total, and that's what this deck tries to do, is gain a ton of life. But Kami does give us one of those outs, and it is something we can easily recur with Orzhov Charms. And we do have Path to Exiles and Orzhov Charms and a few others that does at least give us some game versus Infect, but their ability to give them hexproof, it's going to be a tough matchup unless we can land like a Kami or a Spellskite. So we do have Spellskites as well for the Affinity and Bogles matchups. Nihil Spellbombs are for Living End or any other deck that uses its graveyard like Gristle Shoal. I chose Nihil Spellbomb because we do not want Rest in Peace in this deck because we do use our graveyard. So I don't want to be exiling my own graveyard through Relic of Progenitus or Rest in Peace. So the next best is Nihil Spellbomb, especially since we're in black. And Path to Exile you'll bring in against creatures you absolutely have to deal with. And Memoricide is just like another flex card against the combo decks. You could like lock out a Scapeshift deck. If you can get a Memoricide before they can get Scapeshift off, then the Scapeshift will not be able to. I think that a lot of the Scapeshift decks are only running 11 mountains, and you can actually get above Scapeshift damage just through sacking a Martyr of Sands. So I think our deck will match up very well against that. And I actually have 3 Stony Silences. Yeah, we really want game versus Affinity. Wrath of God will come in against any other hyper-aggressive deck. Burn should be a quite easy matchup through the Martyr of Sands and Serra's Ascendant. It can be a little bit difficult. I've seen people run like Core Firewalkers in the sideboard. I've also seen Dark Confidants be run in this deck, but I think that we want to be above 30, and Dark Confidant can actually hamper our ability to be above 30. We are running the 4 Godless Shrines too, which is a little bit, you could technically, I wish that they'd print the other Battle Land for the Swamp Plains that we got out of the Battle for Zendikar. But unfortunately, we don't have access to that because it actually might be a card that you'd want in this deck rather than... Yeah, well, I guess you'd always have the option to have this come into play tap, but if you controlled 2 planes, you could have it come into play untapped without taking 2 life. Because again, it is... You do want to be your goal is to be above 30 life with this deck. So anyway, that's just a little overall deck tech of the deck. We'll queue it up in a Modern League. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.